Hello everybody, welcome back. In this video, we shall look at some ideas for the Brick Breaker game that can enhance the game and also that can help you earn bonus points, right? Remember, Brick Breaker is a very nice, simple game where we have this array of bricks formed and we use a pedal. The ball bounces off the pedal and then it breaks these bricks, right? So, before we get in there, let's recall some bits about bonus, right? I reiterate these because these are very, very important. Number one, the bonus always comes after basic, right? So make sure that you're clear with the basic concepts, which in this case are cloning, broadcasting, the concept of direction. That's very important here because we are using that to make the ball bounce. And also the entire thing about the nested loop, right? To create the grid of bricks, right? So those basics are important. Please make sure you're thorough with that, and then you can try and attempt the bonus, right? Now also you always earn bonus, right? What you can do for bonus is almost endless. We will give you some ideas, but really it's really endless, right? What earns you bonus today may not earn you bonus in future. Bonus is your opportunity to push yourself, try out new things, and amaze everybody. However, please remember rule number one, that bonus comes after basics. So, with this prelude, which I always bring in these videos, let's get on with the actual ideas that you can use for the Brick Breaker game, right? Now, Brick Breaker really is an interesting game from the point of view of being able to be extended, right? So let's look at some ideas, right? So first thing first, the first idea that comes to my mind is all about the placement of the brick, right? Now in the class, we did basically a rectangular grid. We had like 5 columns, 5 rows and 11 columns, but that need not be the case. You can put bricks in for example, a triangular pattern, right? Or maybe the other thing that sometimes students do is that they start with a rectangular pattern. Then when they go to level 2 or maybe a higher level, they go to a certain triangular pattern, right? So I think this is it's nice. It requires programming, and I'm putting a video link in the description here to where you can get some ideas for how you can do all this, right? It's just basically a modification of the nested loop that we have shown in the class, right? Now on that note, we can think of having different types of bricks, right? So for example, now we can combine these two ideas. Like maybe you have 4 rows of bricks. Perhaps the bottom 2 rows have, are a certain kind, and the top 2 rows are another kind, right? So maybe the top 2 rows, because they are a little bit harder to reach, they give you more points, right? Or you can even have a situation where some bricks, right? Some bricks maybe require more than once, required to be hit more than once before they are removed, right? However, I must tell you that this particular thing is probably a little bit tricky because once you clone, you will have to keep track of how many times each brick has been hit, right? So unlike our class example where one hit and the brick used to go away, and now you'll have to keep track of each clone and how many times it has been hit, right? And that will require using local variables, so it could get a little bit tricky, right? We will learn this more formally later on, right? But like I said, you can combine these two. You can even have, let's say, a upper triangle of one type of bricks and a lower triangle of another type of brick. So that combines these two very nicely and makes your game quite interesting, right? Now, different types of bricks, maybe you can use different sprites and then clone them, right? So that makes it nice, yeah. Now, moving forward, you can have a concept of lives, right? Remember, our game used to get over the moment the ball hit the green color grass, but that need not be the case. You can have probably say 3 lives or maybe 5 lives, whatever way you want, and then the game repeats, right? So unless you finish all these 5 lives, right? Next, a very, very interesting set of ideas come in the Brick Breaker game by using these booster or obstacle sprites, right? Now, if you look at the Scratch platform, and also we are putting, several links down in the description where you will see that people put power-ups which are hidden behind these bricks, right? So, when you're playing the game, suddenly you will see something popping up from the bricks, maybe when the score reaches some point, or maybe when the ball hits that particular power up. And these power ups can help you maybe make, for example, the pedal bigger or pedal smaller, maybe change the let's say change the speed of the ball, or maybe temporarily get you over this problem of lives, right? So even if you let the ball go, nothing happens for it, right? Another way people do this obstacles is that they do not stay behind the bricks, but they are probably somewhere, let's say somewhere else on the screen, but and if you hit those those obstacles, probably the ball gets deflected, or ball just gets reflected back or something. So again, several examples in the description which will help you. Moving forward, you can make very interesting graphical effects in this game. Right now, how is that? Let's see. First thing first, the bricks and the ball can be made colorful. Right, so use what is called the color effects, right, to make these balls, all the bricks and the ball, colorful. You can make them dynamic in the sense that the color of the ball may change, say every time it's moving, or maybe every time it hits an edge, or every time it reflects, the color changes a little bit. That looks quite nice. You can create trailing effects on the ball. So basically, think of it like a comet, right? So ball is going, and then there's a trailing thing behind it. So you have to use again the ghost effect, and you have to do some amount of coding to get this done. You can also, in the same note, put animation on the bricks, right? So for us, the brick was disappearing only after being hit, but probably brick can do some kind of a somersault, right? And then it disappears, right? Again, there's a program, there's example, there's an example we are putting in the description. You could take a look at that, and I think that will give you some ideas, right? Now, the next set of innovation in this game, and it's actually quite interesting, relates all to the ball itself, right? So now we talked about the graphical, aspects of the ball, but think about the ball movement, right? So in our case, the ball is very nice. It follows the law of reflection in the sense that if it goes and hits something, the direction changes to 180 minus the direction, which means it's basically like a perfect mirror. It's called law of reflection. But then you can have a crazy ball, right, which does not follow this law of reflection. It pulses somewhat randomly. That actually makes the game quite interesting, right? So because it becomes a little bit unpredictable. So you have to predict where the ball is going to go next, and the ball kind of goes in a little bit of a random direction, right? So that's very interesting. Similarly, the speed of the ball may change during the game, right? So you could do this either by using, let's say, after some amount of time, speed changes, increases, decreases, or you can actually have power-ups for this, right? So I talked about power-ups. Maybe a certain power-up maybe speeds up the ball, right? So this is another good idea. Now, talking of this, an extension here is to use multiple balls, right? Now, you can have probably 2 or 3 balls. So when you do this, you'll have to be a little bit careful, because you will have to make sure all the broadcasts are talking to the specific ball, right? So if you just use, for example, a bounce, as we have done in the class, it's going to be problematic because every ball will start bouncing, right? So you'll have to tell which ball is bouncing, and let's say which broadcast is controlling that, right? Now, in fact, you can combine a lot of these ideas. So different types of bricks and different kind of balls. So probably some kind of bricks get hit by only by a certain kind of ball, so only then they respond, right? So there are many mix and matches you can do from here. But let's just, before we wrap this up, let's see this once again in context of the game that we developed in the class. Now, this is a very simple game. I mean, in the sense that the game kind of works. There's a simple ball that moves up and down. We use the pedal to hit it, and the bricks keep getting hit. Bricks are all in a uniform color in a nice grid, right? So the first thing that I said is that you can choose to place these bricks in some patterns, right? We are putting in a rectangular grid, but maybe a lower triangle or an upper triangle, or that could be done as part of a second level. You can have different types of bricks, right? So here we have only one brick. Probably you can have, say, brick type 1 and another sprite brick type 2. Maybe the brick type 1 is formed, let's say, in the lower part. Brick type 2 is formed in the upper part. And then you can have a situation where bricks give you different points, right? Or maybe another variation is bricks type 2 is probably, let's say, in the lower triangle. Bricks type 1 is in the upper triangle, and they give you different points, right? So again, that's something you'll have to do a lot of coding to make sure all of this works correctly. Right. The next variation that I told you is that these bricks, let's say maybe brick type 2 is special and it requires to be hit twice, right? However, that will require a little bit more work, because what you're really trying to do is that you are cloning something, and then for each clone you are going to keep track of how many times it has been hit. Remember, each of these bricks is a clone, right? So if I want to remove them after 2 hits, I have to keep track of how many times every clone has been hit, right? And the way that is done is to use variables which are called local variables, or variables only for the sprite. We will learn this in the future, but you can try this. You can explore yourself and try this whole idea, right? Then I talked about concept of life. So this is very simple. Well, if I in my game, if I, let's say, deliberately let the ball go, I lose. Uh, I can make it a little bit more, let's say, not so strict. I can say that, okay, look, you have 3 lives, 3 times you can hit this ball. The game will not get over. Maybe after 3 times, then the game gets over, right? So every time you keep track of lives. If the lives are not over, you can have the game start again, right? Wherever you are left, right? Send the ball back to center and start it again. Then we spoke about this thing called the booster slash obstacle sprites, right? So what you could do, there are many variations here, right? So you could put some sprites which are behind these bricks, so they are in a low, so in a layer which is behind these sprites, so these bricks, so they are not visible to you. But if the ball goes and touches those sprites, right, then they become visible, right? So in fact, you can hide them in the beginning, right? Or you can put them in a lower layer, and maybe when the score reaches a certain point, or probably when the ball hits them, then these sprites appear and they start maybe dropping, or they start moving in some random ways. And they can do things like maybe your pedal becomes bigger, right? So the game becomes easier to play, right? Or the pedal becomes, if you go and hit certain particular, let's say, power up or an obstacle, maybe the pedal becomes smaller, and you can do that by giving more costumes to the pedal, right? And just using switch costume, next costume, and so on. Again, there are several examples in the description. You can use those to get this. Next, I talked about graphical effects, right? So what I mean is, notice here my ball is always red color, bricks are always orange color, right? And there's not much going on, right? But I could use color effects to create a very colorful array of bricks. I can use color effects also to create a situation where the ball color keeps changing as the ball is moving, or maybe as the ball gets reflected, right? So where do I find this color effects? Well, go to, say, the ball sprite or the big sprite. Color effects are found inside these looks, right? There is something called set color effect, or change color effect by, say, some number. You can have actually multiple things are available. You can use ghost effect to create the trailing scene, so the ball looks like a comet, the main ball in front, and there's several things behind. Also for the bricks, right, when they do disappear, so when this situation happens, when the ball brick hits the ball, you can have a situation where a little bit of, say, some kind of somersault is done, right, and the brick then disappears. So that looks quite nice. Next, I spoke about the ball movement. So here, notice that the ball is following the law of reflection. So it goes and it reflects back from the pedal, right? But that really need not be the case. I can have a situation where this broadcast called bounce adds an element of randomness, right? So yes, it turns it around, but maybe it adds a small randomness to it. So you'll see the ball comes this way. Probably it can go, maybe vertically back upwards, right? Instead of coming this way and then going this way, right? So that makes it interesting. In fact, there are other variations also you can do with respect to this. You can have, for example, you can make the ball go in quite, let's say, very non steep paths. A ball probably goes like this, then it takes a long while for the ball to reach the bricks, and that kind of somehow creates interest. It makes it interesting. You can also have a situation that when the ball is reaching, let's say, some parts of the corner of the screen, right, you can have it suddenly change its angle. So you don't use if on edge bounce, but you can use some gimmicks over there. Again, there are examples in the description you can use to build this thing, right? Next, we can talk about the speed of the ball, right? So notice in our game, the ball keeps moving at a certain speed, but we can change that, right? We can have a situation where the ball speeds up, probably over time, or probably through a booster, and that makes it quite interesting. Right, and the way you do that as well, remember the ball steps is a variable. You can control that. In fact, you can have a situation where in the next level, maybe the speed becomes higher or something like that. There's a lot of variations you can think in this way, right? And finally, I spoke about multiple balls. So here I have only one ball sprite. I could have another ball sprite, maybe ball two. Probably its color is different, and apart from that, everything remains same. But like I said, be very careful, because if you just directly copy bounce, right? So ball, even though it may not, one ball might be hitting the bricks, the other ball might just change its direction because of this bounce, right? So you have to be careful which ball is hitting and which ball is supposed to bouncing, right? So you can probably have bounce red and maybe bounce green, and again, all of this will require a little bit of work, right? So that's why we give you bonus for this, right? So anyway, the whole idea is that there's lots of variations you can build. There's lots of enhancements you can do to this game. Important point is that you enjoy this process. You be creative here and enjoy this whole thing. Right? Take care. Bye bye. Thank you so much.